All right, hello everyone. This is week 3 video. And as we talked about in class, today I will go over feedback for essay number 1 and also go through chapter 2 for us here. So yeah, let's start with essay number 1. You have all the feedback that you can view on Canvas now. And in my announcement, I also mentioned, please be sure to read all the comments, review all the comments carefully. I did give you kind of like a breakdown of the scores. So if this were the final draft, that was, the score you would have received. And I also mentioned in the announcement that I'm not going to count the first draft scores toward your final grade. I think it's, yeah, I'm not sure the reasons, but I think we could use a little bit of practice with this first draft here. I'm not sure, as we talked about in class, I'm not sure how many of us took 273 here, and I don't know, what was covered in 273 classes. But anyway, just want to make sure that we do have some time to practice and improve on essay writing, and I don't want essay number 1 first draft to count against your score because of that. But that means please take this opportunity to definitely visit the WRC, get someone to take a look and help you out with this essay writing, because we also talked about in class, each level gets much harder, right? It's not really a smooth increase. It's kind of like this big jump. So if you were getting, let's say, maybe a B in 273, it might be like a C or lower in ESL 5, right? Because there's this big jump. I would say 273 is kind of maybe around like 9th grade level, 10th grade. And then ESL 5, suddenly you're in college level writing, right? So yes, you're making up, you're trying to catch up. You're making up a lot of ground. You're trying to catch up to someone who took 2 years to practice essay writing, whereas for you it was just a 1-week break between quarters, right? So of course it's normal, it's okay, it makes sense that this first assignment might feel kind of different. The expectations are much higher suddenly, right? It's not a very smooth increase in difficulty. So anyway, really look at the feedback carefully, look at the comments carefully, get some help if you think that'll be of service, that'll help you. And another thing is, if there are some grammar issues, you can also log into turnitin.com, and again, it has the ETS, the automatic grammar feedback. But also, like I mentioned, that's not perfect. It's not a perfect system, but it might help with maybe some of the more rule-based things like punctuation and whatnot. All right, so on the screen here, essay 1 feedback. My general feedback here across all the essays that I read. The average score was not too great. It was not very high. There were some very high scores. So that it's more kind of what do I say? Like we got some outlier scores. We got some high scores, we got some low scores. And then most of the scores, I think, were more in the middle and mostly related to these bullet points, which is why I put these bullet points on the screen here. Overall, I felt that the introductions were quite strong. I think we did a good job of defining globalization, right, and then presenting the information. Most of us had a clear thesis and topic sentences. The structure, the organization, the format, most of that, again, most of the essays had that. I think we just want to keep practicing with citations, especially, right? MLA format, in-text citations, and also the works cited page. Another big thing you really want to focus on this quarter in this class is how you introduce your evidence, how you integrate your evidence, and I'm going to talk about that in one of these bullet points. All right, so let's start with plagiarism examples. We might think that plagiarism is simply copying a sentence exactly the way it is. Okay, that is definitely plagiarism, when you copy a sentence exactly word for word without citing the source, without telling us where you got that sentence from. However, another example of plagiarism is if you take a sentence and you just change a few words. If you change a few words, that wasn't your sentence to begin with, right? You started with somebody else's sentence. That is still plagiarism. So even if you change the words, you change the order of the sentence, Turnitin.com will still recognize that. So please make sure to not plagiarize, just kind of, use your own words. Think about the topic in general, say something about the topic and use that as your sentence. There were still a few essays that had the missing thesis statements and missing topic sentences. Usually in those essays, I noticed that maybe evidence was lacking, or I'm not sure if we, carefully read the articles from the textbook. Make sure that your thesis presents pros and cons as discussed in the articles from the textbook, right? So it's really, really important. You must read the articles in order to do well on this assignment. Okay, the evidence must come from the articles. You must read the articles. Topic sentences. Think back to previous writing classes. Your topic sentences should not be a fact and a piece of evidence. It needs to introduce the topic of that paragraph. If the topic of that paragraph is a pro, right? Maybe, one benefit of globalization is blank, right? That would be a topic sentence. Don't start your paragraphs, your body paragraphs, with a fact or a piece of evidence. Another thing I kind of saw was sometimes we were referring to authors by their first name. In academic writing, always refer to authors by their last name. It's okay to use the full name, first and last name, if you're introducing the author for the first time, but when you refer to them again, right, you don't use their first name, use their last name. Then we're going to talk about the citations. So yes, there were quite a few missing or incorrect citations. It's very, very strict now, you've noticed. And again, 1/8, right? 1/8, you get 4 points out of 32 points for just the MLA citations. So it's very, very important that you get this right. Make sure to check your punctuation, where your quotation marks go. Make sure the period or comma, goes where it needs to go. And I know that there are a lot of different variations of when punctuation should be inside the quotation mark, when it should be outside, but really, really make sure to watch that week 1 video and look at all the notes. Just make sure you follow the rules exactly. If you have your citation in the parentheses at the end of your quote, at the end of the sentence, then you're going to have your quote, end quotation mark, space, parentheses, last name, space, page number, close parentheses, period. All right, that would be the default citation, like we said in that week 1 video. So really, really be careful with your punctuation marks. Those are easy points you don't want to lose. Integration of evidence, and I'm bolding the word integration. This is very, very key. It's okay. This is a skill we're going to keep practicing, but integration of evidence means we don't just write a sentence and then drop a quote in and then move on. We have to integrate the evidence, meaning we need to introduce the evidence. So we should already be talking about this topic. I know, many of us used the fast food example. So we're talking about like fast food, and we're talking about McDonald's, McDonaldization. So you're going to introduce that topic, right? Kind of talk about it in general first. Then that's when you can include some evidence, maybe statistics, right? Some facts from the article. And then you have to synthesize. You're not quite done, right? You can't just stop there. So hopefully, again, this is something you've learned in previous classes. You have to also say something about that. Now you have this evidence. What does this evidence suggest? Okay, again, this is important here. What does this evidence suggest? What does it prove? How does it prove something? Okay, so you have to sort of make a conclusion, like a very small conclusion based on the evidence that you chose to include in your essay. Now, that's why you don't want to end your paragraph with evidence. This is something I saw as well. If you end your body paragraph with the evidence, you probably didn't get a chance to synthesize the information. You didn't get to respond to the information and say something more about the information. Because think about this, if you don't analyze the evidence for us, you just drop the evidence and move on. How is that much different from somebody just reading the book, right? So your job, you are kind of like the interpreter. We kind of talked about how you're kind of like translating these articles for someone. It's kind of like you're interpreting these articles, this information for someone. So you drop the quote, and then you also have to kind of interpret, analyze the evidence. So what does that mean, right? What does that suggest? Really keep that in mind, and that's going to help you with your analysis of your evidence a lot. Okay, next bullet point, amount of evidence. There were a few essays that I saw were more than 50% quotes or evidence from the article. That would just be we just go ahead and read the article, honestly. Our essays are, again, these are supposed to be our essays, right? Our sentences, our writing. So really, you shouldn't really have much evidence. You probably shouldn't have any evidence in your introduction and conclusion paragraphs. I know sometimes you might want to define something in the introduction. That's fine, but no more evidence in the conclusion, right? Definitely, never. No more evidence in the conclusion. Maybe one piece of evidence in the introduction, but then most of your evidence should be in your body paragraphs. And then if they're in your body paragraphs, your evidence should not be more than 20% of the paragraph. Otherwise, it's basically it's a collection of quotes. So again, why don't we just go ahead and read the actual article? Why should someone read our essays? So our job as the writer is we already read the articles, we interpret the information, we present the information, and we help analyze the information for our readers. Also, make sure that your quotes and paraphrases are no more than 1 to 2 lines. That's also going to help you reduce the amount of evidence in your paragraphs. And again, this is very, very common. Okay, so no worries. This is very, very common. A lot of students, when we start writing this kind of essay, we want to include a lot of evidence, right? Because we trust the evidence. The evidence, that those are the facts, right? We feel like we shouldn't say much because we should just let the evidence prove it. But again, that's not the point, right? It's not the purpose of this kind of essay. Our job is actually here to kind of analyze and synthesize the evidence. How do we put all of this evidence together to support this bigger claim, which again is the thesis, is what are the pros and cons of globalization? So always try to connect evidence back to the prompt, to the assignment, to the thesis, because after all, that's what all this evidence is supposed to do, to support your claim, your response to the prompt, to your thesis. Another highlighted point here, think about a 1-to-3 ratio, 1-to-3, minimum 1-to-3 ratio. What I mean is if you have one piece of evidence, you should have at least 3 sentences related to that piece of evidence. Because think about this, you should have at least one sentence that introduces the evidence. You should have probably 1 to 2 sentences analyzing or synthesizing the evidence as well. Okay, so that means you can think about evidence as probably 4 sentences. Think about evidence as 4 sentences. One sentence to introduce the evidence, a second sentence is the actual evidence, and then maybe 2 sentences to analyze and interpret that evidence. This will also help you a lot. Yeah, just hopefully these were things that were covered, were learned in previous classes. And then there are also some other things I noticed. Do not use outside evidence. Again, we're sticking to the articles from the textbook. So again, you have to read the articles. We're not using outside evidence. There were a few paragraphs that I saw where we were start talking about how it affects like international business or something like that. But it's not, that wasn't really covered too much in these articles. And then also, if you mention something, consider using evidence to support your claim. If you have, let's say, like 7 or 8 sentences without any evidence, you're probably lacking evidence because you're saying a lot about something, but you don't have the evidence to prove what you're saying. Okay, so think about that also. Every time you start talking about something, it should be leading to the evidence and then analyzing that evidence. If you don't have evidence to support something you're saying, don't use that, because maybe that means it's not related to the articles from the book, or it means that it's, you don't have enough proof, you don't have evidence to support that. So really stick with the articles from the textbook. And then finally would be, of course, the works cited page. Please take a look at the format, the MLA format page, the template page, document that's on Canvas. It needs to look exactly like that. All right, so it needs, again, look at the week 1 video for more information. We have to be, we teachers, we have to be very, very picky about works cited page formatting, MLA. Again, this is why this is also worth 4 points out of the 32, right? So we talked about how in-text citations plus the works cited, that's already 25% of your grade, all right? 25% of your grade comes from just MLA format. So work on your works cited page, make sure you check the format, make sure you check alphabetical order. We talked about that a few times. And yeah, just really, really take time to polish your essays because your final draft is going to be due by the end of this Sunday, right? It's worth 32 points. So that means each point is going to matter quite a lot. All right, so yes, please reach out if you have questions. But again, we strongly recommend visiting WRC or getting a tutor and someone to help you take a look at all of these requirements. But again, like I said at the beginning, the structure of the essays, the organization, like everything like that, mostly were fine. These were mostly fine essays. It was more about the integration of evidence. And I don't know if that's related to maybe the reading of the articles and understanding of the articles, because that usually has a connection. There's a relationship, because if we didn't really understand what we read, or if we didn't really read it, it's going to be very hard to write an essay about it. And this is something that teachers can see very well, right? Teachers can usually tell if a student didn't read the original material. And again, I just want to really remind us that most of our, all of our essays this quarter are going to follow that structure. You read something and you write an essay in response, right? That's true for essay number 1. Essay number 2, we're reading an article and then we're writing a response, a timed response. Essay 3, you're going to be reading research articles, right? And then you write a response. Essay 4, you're going to be finished with reading the novel To Kill a Mockingbird, and then you have to use evidence from the novel to help you write a response. And same with the reflection essay, because if you've done the portfolio, you're going to be using your first 4 essays as your evidence. All right, so this is really the key of this writing class. This is why it's a reading and writing class. Okay, so just please be sure to keep up with the readings, or else you may find it actually quite hard to probably pass the class. All right, so let's talk about chapter 2. This chapter is not that long either. I think it's about like 10, 13 pages. So we already talked about the summary in the preview during the class. So we talked about the types of writing. The book is going to talk about the types of focus, creating a research question, focused reading guidelines, creating a rough draft, and techniques for analyzing your notes. So I've included it in the slides here if you want to take a look at these bullet points again. But for now, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual book. So this is chapter 2, excuse me. All right, this is chapter 2. We're going to build a paper focus. All right, after exploring the theme in a broad sense, you're ready to write a research paper about one of the aspects of the theme. Again, this book is kind of helping you prepare for essay number 3. All right, so yeah, I'm going to be assigning the research question, of course. All right, so there's not too much else to know about this page because I'm going to be providing the question for our research paper, essay number 3. All right, so in this chapter, you'll practice using a research question, doing focused reading, and creating a rough outline. So yeah, just like the preview, right? We're going to talk about how to prepare as we read articles for our research essay number 3. To explore your topic in chapter 1, so again, our topic will be essay number 3. I will assign the topic for essay number 3, and you'll be finding articles to read, so don't worry about this paragraph too much. Elements of a research question. A research question includes 2 parts. Number 1, the topic for your paper, and number 2, the focus. Okay, so here's an example research question. Why do people become addicted to alcohol? Why? That's the focus, right? Why do people become addicted to alcohol? So addicted to alcohol is the topic, alcoholism, right? Or addiction to alcohol. But why? Why do people become addicted to alcohol? That is not our research number 3, essay number 3 research question, by the way. This is just an example. All right, so this is going to introduce us to the different types of focus. Cause, right here, sorry, down here, cause. This kind of question asks you to explain the cause for something. So, right, what causes addiction to alcohol? That would be a cause and effect essay. And then the second part here, effect, right, writing about the consequences. So usually if someone asks you to write a cause and effect essay, right, you're going to be obviously talking about the causes and the effects. But sometimes you can also split them into 2 assignments, right? Just the causes, and then in this case, just the effects. So what are the effects? What are the negative consequences of alcohol addiction? Think about essay number 1 that we're doing. What are the positive and negative effects of globalization, right? We're writing an effect essay for essay number 1. If you were talking about some of the causes, that's okay too, but really we should be focused on the effects, right? Effects. Comparison. So this is kind of like a compare and contrast, to compare 2 or more concepts, and you've probably done, something like this, so you can read the examples. A definition essay. Oh, which way? I'm going this way. All right, which definition? Some research questions, some essay assignments ask for an in-depth definition of a topic. So maybe something like maybe more business or psychology, right? So let's say in psychology, there's something called the bystander effect. The bystander effect, right? Someone might ask you to write an essay. What is the bystander effect, right? So you need to define, give some examples, explain it. If you're interested, you can Google bystander effect. Classification. If you've taken 263 with me, this was one of the paragraphs that we write. Classification essays, classifying something. Think about classifying as categorizing. Okay, so an example would be like, oh, what are the different categories of cars? Well, let me be more specific. What are the different categories of like methods of powering a car, right? So right now we've got traditional gasoline engines, we have diesel engines, we have hybrid technology, we also have plug-in battery, like BEV, right? Battery electric vehicles. We've got PHEV, so plug-in hybrid, and we've got just regular hybrids. So yeah, we have a lot of different categories of cars. So that essay, for example, would be a classification of, right, the different drivetrains, the different ways that cars get their power. Problem and solution. Pretty straightforward. We're going to present a problem and then talk about solutions. Process. This is when you kind of like teach someone to do something, right? Process. How do I make a tuna sandwich? Right? And I might write a paragraph or essay about the process. Okay? Again, process. And argument. You've probably done argument. Argumentative writing, persuasive writing. Sometimes these questions or prompts will come in a yes/no format. Right? For example, should the legal age for drinking be lowered from 21 to 18? Yes or no? It's not your personal opinion. It's based on evidence. Okay, keep that in mind. Base it on evidence. Your personal opinion might be felt by your reader if you just say a lot of yes and no. Let me start over. Let me clarify. yes, your personal opinion will come through in this essay, right? If you say yes or no, that of course that's your opinion. But what I mean is when you have the evidence, when you're supporting your claim, that should be based on research, based on evidence, right? It's not using anecdotal, it's not using your personal experiences, it's not based on what you've seen, your life or your friends' lives, right? It's based on real research. So that's what I mean. Okay, so don't use personal experiences as evidence. Okay, on the next page here, just kind of continues to finish talking about some of those types of focuses. And there is a practice here. Whoops, shouldn't show you that part, but yeah, there is a practice here on page 33. If you would like to pause and give this a try, you read the different prompts and then try to figure out what the topic is and what the type of focus is. All right, then at the bottom of the page, it says there are research questions with more than one focus, and it continues on the next page here, 34. Here's an example. In what ways can understanding the causes of addiction help a person stop drinking? So when we think about this prompt, it actually is asking two focuses. What are the causes of alcohol addiction, right? Because in what ways can understanding the causes of addiction help a person stop drinking? So that is probably the process. What is the process? And that would include the methods for stopping addiction. So that means the writer must also discuss methods for stopping, right, that relate to causes of drinking. So this is what I mean, right? Every time you see a prompt, really understand what the prompt is asking, all the parts of the prompt of the assignment, and make sure to answer everything fully. And which is why we want to brainstorm and outline, which we'll also talk about in this chapter. Example 2, how does the value of individualism influence people's expectations of marriage? Well, individualism, we probably need to define individualism pretty well so that everybody is on the same page. We all understand what you mean when you say individualism, right? So your readers will also understand. And then how does individualism affect people's expectations of marriage? So yeah, right, there's going to be the effect that we need to talk about as well. And then down here is a now you try. Okay, so you give that a try. All right, page 35. This is very important. That means anytime you get a research question, anytime you get an essay prompt or assignment, you must identify the focus so that you can answer it correctly. Okay, that's all. Yeah, that's pretty much all. Okay, there's this optional part on page 35, creating a research question. We're not doing that, right? Because I'm giving you the research question. But remember what I said in class, in future writing classes, usually your teacher will not give you a research question. They'll just give you a topic. And then you have to come up with the focus. You have to come up with the actual research question. Okay. So yeah, it might be something like, oh, you know how I said earlier, the bystander effect? Maybe they might ask you to write an essay related to the bystander effect in psychology. So you could, you can come up with any research question like, oh, how does it affect adults? Or maybe how does it affect teenagers? Or does it have does it have a stronger effect on certain type of people? Like you can just come up, right? You can design, you can come up with your own question that you want to answer, and you can do your research that way. So yeah, sometimes it's actually more interesting, right? When you can design your own research. All right, 2 ways to create a research question if you have to. Okay, so 1, consider ideas, and then discuss it, and you can think about quotes. What is a quote, right? Like, I'm sorry, no, what is a hero? What is a hero? I read a quote. It's like you can read something, and then you probably will just come up with a question, or you have a question after you read something. Okay, and then 2, look at some of your readings that you highlighted. Again, you read something, you take some original content, and you probably have a question about it. And that's what they're saying here. And there's a now you try on page 36. And the bottom of page 36, again, this is all part of the optional, right? Creating a research question, and then just go ahead and follow through and come up with a focus as well. right? So like, oh yeah, what are the effects of the bystander effect? So really, the trick is think about the types of focus and use a type of focus to answer the question that's the related to the topic. So again, sorry, that came out weird. If your teacher in a future writing class gives you a topic but not the focus, just think about one of these focuses, right? And also cause on the previous page. Think about one of the focuses and then just relate that to the topic. All right. Page 37. Now we're talking about reading articles. Okay, focused reading and taking notes. So now you know what the research question is, and you will know for essay number 3, right? I'm giving you the research question and the type of focus. There are some guidelines. So 6 of them. Number 1, read quickly, because you don't really need to read everything carefully the first time. Number 2, highlight any information that looks like it might answer your questions. Number 3, don't think about it yet. Don't analyze it. Just whatever seems like it might be useful. This is also going back to number 1, read quickly. Number 4, notice that some sources will be covered with highlights while others will only have a few marked areas. This is really important for any type of reading, right? Not just research reading. This is what we say whenever we talk about annotations or annotating. This is kind of like the purpose that we annotate. So by the way, annotating, right, means underlining just things that stand out to you. Maybe sometimes it's going to be like some numbers, some facts, so on. You also saw annotations in my pictures of pages 174 through 190. So you notice how I didn't circle or underline everything, right? It was just some of the things. And those are the things that probably seem useful, and that some paragraphs will have areas that are highlighted. And then so we go back and read the areas that we highlighted or underlined or circled, right? And then we think about, okay, is that actually useful or not? And then just keep track of what you have annotated. I think it's a really good idea, and it's actually very convenient. If we're doing research online, we're gonna have all these like maybe PDFs, right? We're gonna have these PDF files, and we can just copy paste the quotes into a separate document. This is something I used to do. When you organize, this is a really good tip. When you organize your evidence, you can just copy paste the quotes that you probably will use in your essay into your outline, and then go ahead and create your works cited, your a works cited page, right? So you have a collection of all that. So that way, when you start writing your paper, you don't really have to worry about the works cited page. You don't have to worry about typing the quotes word for word, because now we can just copy paste the quote directly from the source. Just make sure that the formatting is correct, right? Make sure it's Times New Roman, the font, the size, and all that. But yeah, that's a great way to organize your information. In fact, we're going to do something like that with our essay number 3, and that's what we call the annotated bibliography. Okay, we're going to talk about that in I forget which week, but when we start talking about essay number 3. And then here's a now you try. Okay, and you can give this a try. All right, page 38. Right here, page 38. Note-taking methods. With many sources to read and evaluate, you need a way to keep track of the material you use. You may use. You need to record where you have looked, what you have found, and how to find each piece of information again. So you need some sort of system, right? And this is what I was just talking about. If you're doing a lot of research online, create a new document and just start saving the links, copy pasting the quotes you think you want to use, and also creating the works cited page right there, right? Because you already have all the information you need to use to create your in-text citations, your end-of-text citations. So when you actually want to use it in an essay, you could just copy paste it and it already has the citations. You don't have to go back and find what page number it was from, right? That's really the key. You don't have to waste time going back and finding what page it was on. If you already make your citations as you take notes, you're good. Okay, and then yeah, this page is talking about like, oh, once you underline and circle and highlight, right, you can organize these systems. So you can use your highlighted sources. You can take notes on the computer. Yeah, this is great. This is what I really recommend. You can write notes in the margins, the sides, the edges. But I guess my guess is you will not have a lot of printed out articles, right? We're going to be doing a lot of online research. So that also means note cards are probably not going to be as effective as taking notes on a computer, of course. And then there are some activities here. We don't need to worry about that. Page 40, building your paper. Read and take notes on your sources. Number one, using your research question, complete a focused reading of articles in Plan 2. Oh, I'm sorry. No, never mind. Excuse me. We're not doing this. Yeah, we're not doing this. Excuse me. All right. Creating a rough outline. This is what I meant to read. Creating a rough outline. Up to now, you have explored and focused on your subject in a broad way, reading and discussing sources, paraphrasing passages, writing your opinions, and taking notes. At this point, you may feel that you have so much information that it's confusing. But think of this stage as necessary chaos, right? We need to do this. And by the way, you see that punctuation, comma or period inside the quotation mark. When lots of ideas are in the air before the dust clears and you have a clear image. In fact, with the ideas you're thinking about and the notes from your reading, you already have much of the substance of your paper. Yeah, I'm going to emphasize this. I agree with this so much. Once you've done the research, once you've collected your quotes, right, your evidence, and you created your citations, in-text citation, end-of-text citation, at that point, it's just writing sentences to connect evidence together, to integrate evidence together. So research is actually the more difficult and the more time-consuming part of research papers for most students. The next step is to figure out how your ideas fit together. A great way to do this is making an outline. Okay, so again, if you've had me for a writing teacher before, I teach this as early as 263, right? Making an outline is really, really important. It begins with your research question, which is the prompt, the assignment. It identifies the focus, right? How am I going to respond to this prompt? And then it lists several categories of answers to respond to the prompt. So example, same research question. Why do people become addicted to alcohol? So why? That means the focus is cause, right? I need to answer why. What are some answers? Emotional distress, social pressure, and genetic predisposition. Okay, there are sometimes in our bodies, our genes, right, just already encourages certain behavior. To create this outline, the writer used sample research question on page 31. She identified the focus as causes, right? And then she was able to read some sources and organize those sources into 3 causes, right? And that's the outline. Of course, we need to expand on this outline. When we go beyond a rough outline, we need to expand with evidence we're going to use for each of these 3 causes. All right, so then techniques for analyzing our notes. Technique number 1, we need to brainstorm a list. We need to think about all that we've read. And here's an example of that on page 42. Example research question, what makes a successful city? We brainstorm all these. If you had me for 273, we usually do this at the beginning of class in week 1. Well, actually 263 also. Right? Why should people live in California? Right? We think of all these reasons people should live in California. Then we start categorizing them. We start putting the same category things together, right? So for example, number 1, strong neighborhoods, volunteerism, affordable housing, strong sense of self, good schools, good citizens, strong leadership, low crime. 2, good economy, safe, diverse industry, flexibility, opportunities, good colleges, right? These are all, if you take a look here, created that follows numbered the related ideas. numbered the related ideas. So all the ones are kind of related, all the twos are kind of related. 3, cultural amenities, so like resources, arts community, sports teams, interesting places to go, good air and water quality, natural beauty, dynamism, and attractive urban design. Those are all kind of related to each other. I don't know how much I agree with some of these numbers, but you can choose, right? And so using the list above, the students decided that all the number ones are about social structure, right? That's one way to look at all the number ones. Number 2, all about economy. All the twos are about economies. And 3, all about environment. So that means, right, what do all these specific reasons have in common? So all the number ones are related to social structure. So that means that becomes one of your controlling ideas, right? That becomes one of the things you include in your thesis. What makes a successful city? Social structure, economy, and environment. So that means it becomes a definition, right? How do you define a successful city? Right there, 1, 2, and 3. And so that's one way you can do it. Technique number 2 is sorting your notes. I did this one. Yeah, this one's kind of I think a bit much, right? Like cutting them apart and then putting them back together and blah blah blah. I think what number 2 is trying to say is instead of numbering them like this, just move the words next to each other, right? So for example, copy cut the word volunteerism and then paste it here. So you have all the ones together, all the twos together, all the threes together. I think that's what technique 2 is basically saying. And then technique 3, color coding, which again is kind of the same thing, right? Instead of using numbers, you use colors. So really just brainstorm, right? This is what we talked about in 273. Brainstorm ideas, put similar ideas together or some sort of organization so you know which ideas go together. And that's how you are able to create your outline. And actually, yeah, I think that's it because at the bottom is just activities. Okay. So this page right here, this should help you a lot as you consider even essay number 2, but especially essay number 3, right? When you're thinking of ideas, organize your ideas so you know what each body paragraph will discuss. Okay, and that brings us to the end of chapter 2. So now these bullet points probably make a little bit more sense. So again, right, types of writing, focus, research questions, guidelines, and creating the outline. I know in the book here, right, we didn't really talk about the informative, entertainment, and persuasive, but we did talk about that in class. But this is something you want to keep in mind because there are 3 major types of writing. And if that's the case, this also helps you with reading, right? You want to think about what am I reading? Am I reading informative, entertainment, or persuasive? Because if I'm supposed to be reading informative, like a news article, but it feels like persuasive, then I really need to be careful, right? I need to think about, whoa, hold on, what is the author trying to do here? I thought that the author is just trying to give me news, just information, but it feels like the author is trying to change my mind or something, right? Then we have to really be careful, right? When we read something like that. Okay, so that pretty much is it. This is a pretty short chapter. So homework again for this week by the end of Sunday, make sure to complete your quiz, chapters 5 through 8. Same thing, okay, same style as quiz number 1. Essay number 1, final draft. So please be sure to go through all the comments, feedback, and check everything very carefully. Follow the grading rubric. Take a look at the grading rubric, the details, right? What makes a 4, what makes a 3. So really, if you want a high score, use the grading rubric to your advantage. And then go ahead and start reading and annotating the article, Why Women Live Longer Than Men, in preparation for essay number 2. Okay. So yeah, we'll talk more about that in class on Monday. Again, let me know if you have questions. And if not, then I will see you on Monday during class. All right, so yes, have a great rest of your week and weekend. Good luck on your assignments for this class, other classes. Really, maybe the WRC or get some outside help with essay number 1. And yeah, I will see you all back in class on Monday. All right, take care, everybody.